Hello and welcome to this Mirror Facebook Live, all about the £650 cost of living payments coming from the government to help with the cost of living crisis. I'm Sam Barker, a money reporter at the Mirror, and I'm hugely grateful to be joined today by consumer champion Martin James. Hello, Martin.
Hello, Sam. Hello, everyone.
So this is a really huge subject here. The Mirror mailboxes, I know it's the same for you, Martin, absolutely swamped at the moment by questions on £650 payments which are coming from the government, and rightly so. You know, it is the single biggest support measure announced by the government. There are quite a lot of bits of devil in the detail with this one. So we're going to be talking about how it all works, who gets it, who doesn't, when you're going to get it, all of the loopholes and snags that we know about so far, and this includes people on benefits such as universal credit, housing benefit, tax credits, and more. So as well as taking you through these payments, we're also here to answer your questions. So if you have anything to ask or you just want to have your opinion heard, please do feel free to post. It will come up underneath this video, and we will be monitoring the questions. We'll do our level best to answer what we can, both during the session and towards the end. So to get started, let me talk just very briefly about what these payments are and where they've come from. So in May, the Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, announced that more than 8 million households on means-tested benefits will get a one-off £650 payment. I say one-off, it's actually going to be made in two lump sums, which we're going to get into. Now, there is, as I said earlier, the devil is often in the detail with these things. With this, there is quite a lot of detail, but we're going to break that down now. So Martin, to kick off with, can we talk us through, which benefits claimants are in line for these payments, please?
Certainly can, Sam. Now, there's a lot of benefits out there, and lots of people might be in receipt of some of them, or might be permanently on them, or qualify for other ones. But the key ones to focus in on here are low-income benefits. These are the means-tested ones based on your life and how much money you have and whether you're working or not. So we're looking at income-based job seekers allowance, income-related employment and support allowance, income support, pension credits, and universal credit. Now, many people will find that they're in the process of moving over to universal credit. We all know that's been rolling out for many, many years. So if you're basically in receipt of any of those low-income benefits, then you should qualify for the payments. There are also additional things as well if you're entitled to tax credits, which we'll come on to later. And indeed, if you are entitled to some disability allowance benefits, there are other things as well. But those are the main ones to look out for.
Absolutely, and there are some sort of smaller means-tested benefits within there. You mentioned your tax credits there, so the government, I think there's a lot of confusion about when people are likely to get these payments, because Rishi Sunak, when he made this big announcement, he said, look, it's a £650 payment, but obviously it's broken down into two chunks, and people are going to be getting these at different points. So Martin, what kind of clarity have we got about when these payments are likely to be made, please?
Well, we are getting a little bit more clarity, Sam. And I just want to say, everyone who's been reading the news or watching the broadcasts of all of this might be feeling very confused, because you may have heard one thing, but as Sam, you said, the devil is in the detail, and there's still quite a lot of things being ironed out here as well. So in the first instance, the first payment should be coming to people. If you were eligible for these benefit payments, then you should have in May, then you should basically be qualifying. That's May the 25th, 2022. Then you should be entitled to the payments. The first payment, that's £325, because they've been split down the middle, should be arriving with you in July, and that will be automatically into the account through which you receive the benefits. I have checked this today, just to be absolutely clear about where that's going to be coming from. Now, the second payment, things are a little bit more mysterious. We're told that this is going to be arriving in August, but the details haven't. Autumn, but the details haven't yet been clarified as to how that's going to happen or eligibility criteria. So, if you qualify for the first payment, or you're recently going on to benefits, didn't qualify for the first payment, but it'll be coming up soon, then there will be more details to follow. So that's one of the things that we're still waiting clarity on.
I'm with you, and we've just got a comment pop up here from Eddie Farrell. I was actually just thank you so much, everybody, for commenting with your questions. I think let's just take a moment now And we're just going to run through these almost like speed dating. We're going to hit these questions one after the other, because I think we've got answers actually to most of the things which you've asked. So Eddie Farrell has asked, do we have to apply for this ourselves? And there's good news for you, Eddie. Martin, should we? What's the answer to that one, please?
Yeah, you won't have to apply for those. If you qualify for the benefits, you should get the money automatically. Now, Eddie, just in case you're concerned as well, just to clarify as well, a slight slip. It's autumn is when the second payment is due, not August. That's quite a broad period, so we're still waiting to see when that will be. The money should go into your account. Now, as we've seen with the £150 payment through the council tax, there's a difference between what's been said and how it's worked in practice. So we will be keeping a very close eye on this for you to make sure that these payments are actually reaching you. And if they don't arrive within, the first couple of days in July, then do let the Mirror know, let me know, and we can look into what's going on.
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself. We're very, very interested in the details of how this works, and as we saw with the way that the sort of the council tax payments are handed out, there's a huge amount of discrepancy and hiccups with that system. Some households were due to get £150, and they actually had £150 taken off them, so they were £150 worse off for a period. If you encounter any kind of snags with this, please do let us know. I mean, firstly, it's really important for us to get the word out there that that's happening, and that's me with my journalist hat on. But me, just beyond that, we will do what we can to help. Now, what I'm going to do now, just before we kind of, talk you through some of the other big points on this £650 payment, just going to take a few questions. We're just going to hit them very, very quickly. Some of these are very short answers, and then we'll get back into it. So Michelle Holden has asked, who gets the £650 payments? I appreciate you asked this quite, towards the beginning of this call. Hopefully, we kind of cleared a little bit of that up for you now. It's mostly people who are on certain means tested benefits. There are a few little niggles with that, and we're going to get into that later in this call. Vanessa Lotz, when will these payments be made? I mean, likewise, you probably asked that, and you were so quick off the mark. We hadn't even had time to sort of get into it. First payment due in July, second payment due in the autumn. So I would assume sort of from September onwards, but we haven't had a set date on that. Callie Thompson asks, is it household only, or is it everyone on benefits? It's per claimant, is my understanding. You can actually be eligible for more than one pot of money. We're talking mostly about this £650 benefit, but actually, depending on your circumstances, you might be able to get more money from the government. And again, we're going to go into that later on this call. Michelle Barrett asks, do you get it if you work? It's not to do with whether you work or you don't work. It's all to do with what kind of benefit you claim. So, for example, if you're on means tested universal credit, you will get this payment even though you may also be working. Catherine Gibson asks, what about pensioners? There are elements within this that pension tax credit, for example, you would be eligible for some of this money. There is also an additional pot of cash just for pensioners, which the government unveiled in May, and we're going to get into that later in this call. So yeah, thank you both. Thank you everybody for all your comments and your questions. Please do keep them coming. We're going to dip back into that a little bit later in the call. But now we've spoken an awful lot about who is going to get this. Which people, which benefits claimants are going to get this. I think we should also talk about who, as it stands, isn't, and then we can talk about other options that are available to you. So Martin, would you mind talking us all through which kind of benefits claimants unfortunately aren't eligible for this £650, please?
Yeah, no problem at all, Sam. And just for everybody watching right now, I would say a lot of the benefits sound very similar. So if you hear it and panic and think that you aren't going to qualify, do speak to the benefits agency, find out if actually the benefits that you're applying for are qualifying or not, because a lot of these do sound very similar. I'll try and explain kind of what the difference is and what I think the government's logic is. So there are certain types of benefits that you qualify for if you're unable to work, for example, for a set period of time, maybe because of an injury or you're going through a temporary blip. The government has currently stated that new style employment and support allowance, contributory employment and support allowance, or new style job seekers allowance, that's a different thing to job seekers allowance in itself, will not be entitled to the cost of living payment unless you get universal credit or a disability benefit as well. So all of that's incredibly complicated. What that means in plain English, basically, is those benefits that I've just set out in place, They're generally awarded if you've got savings of more than £16,000, whereas the other benefits are for people who have very little savings or fall under that threshold. So those, I'm assuming, are excluded because of the fact that you do have savings. But again, both Sam and I have sought clarity from the government about a number of these things, and we will be updating the Mirror and providing you with more information as soon as we find out a little bit more about it. But the key thing is, if you're worried and you're not sure whether you qualify or not, get in touch with the benefits agency and find out how that's going to affect you. You may also discover that you might actually be eligible for some benefits that you didn't think you were. So it's well worth getting in touch if you're still not sure.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And there are some credits, pension tax credit, for example, hugely underclaimed. The government every year is really urging, they're actually urging people to sign up for this. So it's always a worthwhile thing to do, to check to see which benefits you're eligible for. There's about 23 million people in the country who claim, some sort of benefit. And that figure should be higher. So, the help is out there. Now, we've got an awful lot of questions. What about people who work? I hope working people will get something. I think, just thank you so much for sort of pointing it out. And I think that there is something to say there. The first thing is that, there are some of these benefits we've spoken about, things like universal credit. You may be working and claim universal credit, in which case you would be eligible for this money. There is, however, an awful lot of households who they won't be eligible for this £650 payment, because they don't claim means tested benefits. Now, it might be that their circumstances are ever so slightly above that threshold, so they're not really an awful lot better off than people, perhaps just below who were eligible for the benefits. But and understandably, they might feel quite hard done by. The government has got an answer. There is another pot of money that's available. Basically, that's a kind of a catch-all pot of money for families that are struggling, and it's got nothing to do with benefits. And we are going to come on to that later. Once we've kind of covered off everything to do with this £650 payment, we're going to come on to that. So if you're a working individual, working household, maybe you are struggling with the cost of living, there is help available to you, and we're going to go through that. And just to sort of build on slightly Martin's point there, I believe that if you are on contributions-based personal independence payments, known as PIP benefits, that you are also unfortunately not eligible for this £650 payment. That's the bad news. The good news is you are eligible for other money, and as I say, we're going to come on to that. Now, all the while that we're talking about this £650 payment, there are a few snags that have developed with this. Call them what you will. Snags, loopholes, kind of cracks in the system, and these certainly affect things such as some housing benefits claimants, tax credit claimants, and people who are making joint benefits claims. I had a bit of a chat with Martin before the call, and we were going to sort of give you kind of as much as we know about these snags, starting with housing benefit. Now, this is a slightly, we haven't got a huge amount of clarity from the government on this, but it looks like if you get housing benefit and no other benefits, as it stands, you will not get the £650 benefit payment. Now, housing benefit is a means tested benefit. This £650 payment is supposed to go out to people who are on means tested benefits. So why isn't it going out to people on housing benefit? Well, when the Chancellor stood up in the House of Commons and he announced that this payment was being made, he said something quite interesting, but there's almost no other information out there on this. But it looks like if you get housing benefit and nothing else, HMRC can't track you down to make that £650 payment. So what's basically the options available to you are you need to apply for something called the Household Support Fund. We are going to go into the Household Support Fund later and how it works. But that seems to be, Martin and I have both been kind of looking into this and trying to get more information. There's not an awful lot more information out there on this point, but that seems to be the case on housing benefit. Martin.
Yeah, we're both a bit mystified by this, and for many of the people who are like getting in touch as well, it's worthwhile pointing out that I've been a broadcast consumer rights expert for 20 years. Sam's a well-renowned journalist. We've been tearing our hair out trying to understand kind of all of the announcements because there's huge amounts of vagary. So again, please don't feel that you've got to suffer through all of this alone. The Mirror's got loads of guides for all of the different types of benefits that are going out there. We're going to share some of those as well after the show, and we will continue to update you. So it doesn't make any logical sense, because housing benefit money does not magically appear in people's bank accounts. So wherever money is transferred to you, there's an audit trail. So it would make sense that that money can still be paid out. So as soon as we understand what's going on there, we will let you know.
Absolutely. And while we're still talking, we're on the subject of snags with this £650 payment. If you claim tax credits, that's child tax credit or working tax credit, you may have to wait longer to get these benefits. So you'll still get the money, but rather than getting the first payment in July and the second payment sometime in the autumn, you'll get your first payment in the autumn. Again, we're not exactly sure when, and your second payment in the winter. And the reason for that is because it's basically all to do with helping the government and not so much to do with helping you, unfortunately. The government want to avoid paying people twice. So what they're worried about is, because tax credit, the kind of the writing's on the wall for tax credit, because it's being replaced by universal credit, this kind of catch-all credit that was the brainchild of Ian Duncan Smith a few years ago. So the government kind of concerned that if they were to make payments to people who get tax credit now, that they might end up paying them twice if they then get swapped over to universal credit. So the government, in order to avoid this kind of headache for themselves, have unfortunately kind of punted the problem on to people who are on these tax. So unfortunately, if you do claim tax credit, it does look at the moment that you are likely to get the money, but unfortunately later in the year. And there's one other big snag certainly that I've kind of come across with this, and that's if you are a joint benefit claimant. So Martin, we were sort of again talking about this just before the call. If you're a joint benefit claimant, do you get one £650 payment, or do you get two, one for yourself and one for your partner?
It's such a good question. I think some of the comments that have been coming through on the screen have also kind of been addressing this. You would get a single payment if you are a joint claimant. Now, once again, I've been trying to get my head around this. So if you have a joint claim, you and your partner together have a joint singular claim and get a singular amount of money, then you would get only the £650 payment in two parts if you qualify. I mean, of course, it's still possible to be in a relationship with somebody and live separately, and you're both in receipt of separate payments, in which case you would get a payment each. So it's only for an actual processed joint claim where you get one single payment. Exactly
that. And yeah, so it's one of these things where just as Martin says, if you're sort of happen to be living in two separate properties, maybe you're sort of in the early stages of the relationship or whatever it might be, it does look perhaps slightly more optimistic. Now we also just wanted to talk a little bit about what are some of the other pots of money available to you. We spent an awful lot of this call, the last 20 minutes, talking about the £650 cost of living grant. But the good news is that there are other pots of money which are eligible, for far more people will be able to get this money, and a lot of it you get it automatically. You don't need to apply. So the first thing to talk about is the £400 energy discount. So this initially, in its first another thing which hasn't helped with all this is the government keeps changing the rules. So when this was first kind of cooked up in, I want to say February, it was a £200 basically loan. So you would get a £200 discount to your energy bill, and you would then have to pay that back over 5 years, about £40 a year. So the government were very insistent that this wasn't a loan. I think everybody else looked at it and said that absolutely is a loan, and we're going to call it that. But in May, the Chancellor got rid of that and said, what we're going to do is going to be £400, and you don't have to pay it back. So there are a few kind of snags with this, but it should be landing to customers from October. It will come to people who are the bill payer. So if you happen to live in we certainly get an awful lot of questions about this. My circumstances are that I am not the bill payer. Do I get this money? So for example, people that live on caravan parks or in houses of multiple occupation, they may pay a flat fee which covers their bill perhaps and a few other bits, But because they are not the bill payer, their landlord is the bill payer, their landlord gets the money. The government's answer to that is that these people should claim on the household support fund, and we're just about to come on to that. So that's one pot of money. That's £400 per household. That's every household in the country, bar a few people who very sadly look at the moment like they're going to fall through the cracks. Pensioners. So there's a up to £300 payment if you're a pensioner, provided you're eligible for winter fuel payment. So in normal years, winter fuel payment is up to £150, and that's a government benefit designed to help with heating your home in the winter, because obviously older people at home a bit more, maybe feel the cold a little bit more. So that is a £300 payment, and the latest we know on that is that that's due in November. We had a couple of questions. We've had so many questions that I can't quite find at the moment where this question was, but someone earlier said, well, I'm disabled. What do I get? Well, the good news is that there is there's some good news and some bad news. So the good news is that the Chancellor has announced a £150 payment to people claiming disability benefits. That will be paid, the latest, again, that we know about this is it will be paid before the end of September. And that won't affect any other benefits that you get, and it won't affect any of the other help that we've just spoken about there. And now we get on to, I keep talking about the Household Support Fund. Now we get onto the Household Support Fund. So this is kind of the government's answer to anybody who falls through the cracks of anything that we've just spoken about. Maybe you're, as a few people on this call are, they're working, they don't quite qualify for, means tested benefits perhaps. The government's answer to that is, well, look, we've got the Household Support Fund. Now there are a few, snags with how this works. Martin, do you mind sort of just talking us through, anyone who's not familiar with this, what is the Household Support Fund? How does it work, please?
Sure, no problem. Well, this was initially announced last year, and it was only supposed to run for a 6-month period. But back in February, the Chancellor announced that the scheme was actually going to be extended. It was originally £500 million, and now that's been extended by another £500 million. This money is distributed to individual councils, and this is where the snags all kick in, because every single council in the UK, and also there's quite a bit of regional variance, and there's a lot of variance between the 4 countries that make up the UK as well. So make sure that you go onto the government website for Scotland, Northern Ireland, Wales, or England, just if you want to find out a little bit more about how things are being distributed in your own areas. Now, there's been a wave of confusion about this because the household support scheme is something that you can claim through your local council for. It's really straightforward to do. Just type household support scheme into the internet on your local council website, and you'll come up with an application form. How the money is distributed, though, depends on the individual councils. So some councils will be handing you the actual money itself. It could be £150 or so. It might be slightly more, depending on where you are. And some councils are instead providing vouchers. And the reason why they're providing vouchers is that means that they can give people more money, because by buying vouchers, say for food or essentials in bulk, they get discounts. And some councils are doing a mix of the two. So it might be cash, it might be vouchers as well. It's really, really worthwhile emphasising. Lots of people who I speak to, and certainly loads of you who've been contacting the Mirror, say, well, I don't think I'll qualify because I'm working, but I'm not earning very much money. It's worthwhile bearing in mind that 1 in 10 people in work said that they were highly likely to be using the food bank in the next 6 months, which is a horrifying statistic. But it's worthwhile bearing in mind that if you are struggling financially, the household support scheme may be able to help you. And it's also worthwhile saying as well, and again, Sam will cover this as well, that there are loads of other things that you can do if you're struggling with your energy bills. The energy companies will need to know more about your financial situation, but there are a range of other schemes for people who might slip through these cracks here, who are in financial difficulties, and we can cover some of those or send out some information after this broadcast as well.
Absolutely, we will certainly do that. And if you feel that you've got a burning question, the first thing I would sort of encourage you to do, if we haven't covered it off on this call, or you've joined perhaps halfway through the call, have a look on the Mirror website, search it on the Mirror website, because we've done our level best to kind of answer as many questions as we can do. kind of, and if you Google it, hopefully the way that we've kind of set these stories up mean that you should be able to see them quite prominently. And hopefully that will answer your question. If that doesn't work, then you can email the following email address. Sorry, it's a bit of a mouthful, this one. We will try and get back to you. The email address is mirror.money.saving@mirror.co.uk. I don't know why it's so long. Mirror.money.say. I assume all the good addresses were taken. Mirror.money.saving@mirror.co.uk. And we will do our absolute best to get back to you. Now, we've had so many questions that unfortunately we're not going to be able to get through them all. But I will just kind of dip in and just sort of try and answer myself and Martin kind of as many as we can. We had a question from so we have a question here from Christopher Brackley. Will people on prepayment meters get the £400 energy discount, energy grant, I should say? My understanding is that yes, you will. Martin, is that your? Yeah, I'm getting a nod there, the nod of approval.
Right. Yeah. Previous schemes have used vouchers, but the government has said they will ensure everybody on prepaid meters will get the grant. We just don't know how.
There we go. So yeah, 2 thumbs up. Anyone that's here on that is on a prepayment meter, as Martin says, you're due that money. A bit of a snag on kind of exactly how you're going to get it, but yeah, it's coming your way. Another question actually from Christopher Brackley again. I'm getting ESA and PIP. Do I get the £650? My understanding is it depends what sort of ESA you get. If you are on means tested ESA, that's employment support allowance, yes, you will. If you are on contributions based, then unfortunately no, you won't. And it's a similar story for PIP. Katie Connolly says, thank you very much for asking this, Katie. Do you have to apply for this if you're on universal credit as a top up and working? No, you don't have to apply for it. I mean, in fact, this applies to anybody that's on a means tested benefit. It doesn't have to be universal credit. You do not have to apply for this £650 payment. The fact that you're claiming these benefits means that the government knows who you are. They've got your bank details, and they will be making that payment. First payment, hopefully in July. The second payment later in the year. So I think we're almost at the end of how much time we've got set aside today. Thank you so much. We've never had a Facebook Live where we've had so many questions. I really do appreciate it. I hope that we've managed to answer as many as we can. I want to say thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in, and Martin for giving up some of your time today to sort of help talk us all through this subject. It's hugely appreciated. Thank you, everybody. I hope you found that useful. We're back every week, 1 p.m. on Thursdays with future Facebook Lives. Each week, we're going to cover a slightly different point about the cost of living crisis. Every single week, we'll take your questions. So thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in, and we'll see you all next time.